Chinese yuan stability helps global markets recover. Nifty inches closer to 11,000, posting its biggest one-day gain in 2 months. Short covering in high beta stocks sparks an outperformance by mid-caps.
Markets reward good earnings. Pidilite ends in the green after posting strong margins. SRF surges 16% after a strong showing by the packaging films business in the first quarter.
Titan slips 3% from the day's highs but closes with minor gains after reporting first quarter numbers that met street expectation.
DHFL claims that creditors would not have to take any haircut on their principal exposure. Yes Bank and Indiabulls Housing also rise in tandem, but according to sources, the lenders believe they will have to take at least a 30% haircut in various ways.
Indigo ends with marginal gains after the airline's chairman M. Damodaran responds to co-founder Rakesh Gangwal's concerns. Says the airline will clear the new related party transactions policy and will appoint an independent women director after the annual general meeting. Well, those were the top 5 headlines from Dalal Street. Hello and welcome to Markets Today. Talk Back, the show where we'll tell you all that happened in those 6 tantalizing hours of trading in 5 headlines. I'm Lata Venkatesh, with me my colleague Prashant Nair. Hi Prashant.
Lata, hi. So, finally we get a bounce. 68 points was all of it. And we did come off the highs by quite a bit. The high was 11,018. We closed at 10,931. So about 80 points from the highest level, but still good going. Over the next 30 minutes, as Lata pointed out, we will talk about what mattered, the big stories. Our guests will join in and answer your questions. So to take the questions, we have Sanjeev Bhasin of IIFL. And on the charts, we have Mitesh Thakkar. Sanjeev and Mitesh, thanks very much for joining us here as always. But as we always do, let's take a look at what really happened in terms of today's trading action, the factors which were at play from the beginning. Lata.
Let me begin with what didn't happen. The yuan didn't fall. The expectation yesterday, after the yuan fell above that 7 yuan to a dollar mark, was that the Chinese will retaliate with a gradual depreciation or devaluation of their currency. That didn't happen. Actually, the yuan traded for a better part stronger than where it traded yesterday. Even the initial fixing by the PBOC, the Chinese Central Bank, was south of 7. It was at 6.96. And thereafter, it went maximum to 7.04. Remember, yesterday's low was 7.1. So when it became somewhat clear that China is not out to unleash a cheap currency, global equities also recovered, probably surmising that it is not an all-out, no-holds-barred trade war. That obviously was a big help to India. But more than that, the Indian markets were deeply oversold. So even one good news that the rupee is not falling further was enough to trigger some bit of short covering, profit-taking by the bears. This was definitely helped by some stocks posting very good first quarter numbers. The large majority haven't been good, but some mid-caps, SRF numbers were good. Pidilite was good. Titan, of course, is not a mid-cap, but it came in line. So there was a whole lot of minor good news, which also helped the markets. And finally, financials saw the largest short covering because the largest shorts were hiding over there. And ahead of the RBI policy tomorrow, clearly some bears wanted to take profit home. But stock-wise, what was the color?
So, mid-caps and small-caps, I wanted to start with those 2 indices, which were the top index gainers. So that's a broader market for you as well. Advanced decline was close to 3:1, but not quite there. In terms of sectors, real estate did well. PSU banks, private banks. Actually, it's easier to count losers. Only energy was down, and I think IT was kind of flattish, did not gain. Otherwise, everything was up and about, and these are the top 3. Where were the top Nifty gains in? So, Tech Mahindra up 3.5. Bharti was up 3. Asian Paints was up about 2.6. There were the financials. Bajaj Finance ending 3.5 higher. Yes Bank 5.5. Indiabulls Housing was up 8%. And then there were the auto names, Eicher, Hero, Maruti, which all looked good. So these are the Nifty gainers. The cuts coming through, and there were a fair bit as well, but Z, Cipla and RIL stood out. Reliance is turning out to be a bit of a problem for the market. It's down 1.33% again. The broader gains, the broader market gains, SRF topped the list. I mean, huge, 15.5, ending the day, ending at the highest point of the day. DHFL 32%. We'll discuss both these in greater detail. Graphite was up almost 6. ABFRL, Alkyl Amine. We had Kolte Patil, KEI Industries, IRB, Gati, some of the others, which were big gainers on some pretty strong volumes in trade. Lata.
Okay, so let's straight away get to our guests. First to you, Mitesh, are you going home with long positions? Are you more inclined to take long positions tomorrow?
Rather today, I think, when it crossed 10,915, we initiated some longs and I was looking at 11,050 as the target. So we kind of retreated before hitting those levels from around 11,020. I think the market slipped off, and I'm talking about spot levels. So structure is weak and I've advocated, being slightly nimble. So in that sense, our trailing stop loss got hit and we could make only about 25-30 points. But the idea is that it looks like that we are quite oversold, and there's a good chance that 10,800 might not break immediately, of 10,800 give and take 10-15 points. And I think we might just chop around in this 10,800 to about 11,050 range. And I think that should be the idea for, that should be the trading range for the next few days. And therefore, I think I would attempt, trying to buy at lower levels with a 35, 40 point kind of stop loss and try to exit anytime we are closer to about 11,000, 11,020, 50 on the upside.
Okay, so that's the top-down view coming in from Mitesh. Well, let's move on to the second headline of the day. Pidilite ending the day in positive after posting a healthy first quarter set of results. Domestic volumes grew at 6%. Margins were better than expectations. Actually across the board, revenue, margins, EBITDA, net profit, there was a beat. Mangalam is here with all the numbers. Mangalam.
Pidilite moved to a record high after reporting a good set of numbers, telling you that the Fevicol ka jod is well and truly intact. Revenue growth of 10%, EBITDA growth of 16% was the key positive. Gross margins expanded, and as a result of which the net profit came in higher by 22%. EBITDA came in at 444 crores. This compares with our expectations of 418 crores. That meant the margins were higher than our expectations by at least 120 basis points. The consumer business grew 9%. The industrial business grew 14%. We saw margin expansion in both these verticals. The volume growth coming in at 6% was also pretty much in line with what the street was working with.
Okay, good to hear good numbers, isn't it? Moving on, the other mid-cap that announced numbers and impressed with its numbers was SRF. That stock jumped 16% on strong first quarter performance, boosted by a strong showing in the packaging films business. After-tax profit rose 41% year-on-year. Revenue also increased by 9% and thereby beating street expectation.
We've got a question. We have Mr. A. Kamath, who's written in with a query on Pidilite. He holds 500 shares of the company. His cost price is 11.20. As Mangalam pointed out, the close today was 13.15 or so, which was an all-time high. Mr. Kamath wants to know whether he should hold or sell. 500 shares bought at 1120 rupees. Sanjeev, this is to you. What would you recommend?
Well, definitely a hold. I think Pidilite and the entire gamut of paint companies, cement companies, specialty chemicals are showing extremely good numbers and guidance for the forward. So all in all this pessimism of doom and gloom, there are silver linings and Pidilite continues to be one. I would expect by Diwali maybe a target of close to 1450, 1500. So stay put. I think the best is just to come, and that also gives us courage for the rest of the market to start to perform as these pivotal consumer stocks are doing extremely well.
Oh yes, you bet. A 52-week high on the stock. Expensive, but then doing so well. With that, we come to the third headline today. Staying with earnings, Titan slipped 3% from the day's highs, but it has still closed with minor gains following the first quarter results announcement. Mangalam is here with the details.
Titan's results were no different from what the street had expected, and the management had prepared the street for by giving its first quarter update. So revenue and EBITDA grew both at around 14.5%. Margins were by and large stable at 11.5%. And the net profit came in at 370 crores. The street was working with a number of 403 crores. The reason why there was a miss on the net profit is primarily because of the new accounting norms, which meant that the depreciation and finance costs were much higher than what the street was expecting. Jewelry business growth of 13.3% in line. The margins were stable out there. We saw a big growth in the watches business led by an institutional order. So now management commentary on the demand outlook going forward would be key for the stock to sustain at the 52 times valuations that it currently trades at.
Mangalam, thanks very much for that. Mitesh, your thoughts on Titan?
See, this is a stock which has gone into a corrective mode. Last few weeks, if you look at the price movement, the stock has declined from levels of 1350 plus to now at 1050. And we still don't have a signal of correction ending, but it's now hitting very key medium-term support levels around the 980 to about 1005 mark. So I think declines might be close to getting over. You might see some base building, and around 1000 you might see you might see some kind of sideways activity before the stock moves up again. So the idea should be for people who are looking at medium-term outlook, I think should also start accumulating now and on any 15-20 point dip. And people who want to trade, I think you should see that after the base building, once you get a reversal sign, I think then that's the best time to enter.
Okay, good to hear that you're seeing accumulate. Sanjeev, what would you say?
Well, I thought the numbers were just fine. I think the EBITDA margins actually surprised on the upside. And now with gold prices at a new high, I think the festive season and beyond, it should bode very well for Titan. So we have a buy, accumulate rating. Like you said, this is one of our stocks which we have a 12-week sip in. 2 weeks are over, and we think that 1000 it becomes an outright buy. But I think for the next 10 weeks, if you continue to do a sip, you could be richly rewarded by the end of the year.
All right, Sanjeev, thanks a lot for that. Do stay on. We have lots more questions for you. We have to take a commercial break, and we are going to leave you with some market opinion that we got from two experts at MK Global.
The institutional money is waiting and we are getting inbounds, so dry powder is going up. As we know, the SIPs are very sticky and 8,000-9,000. And at the same time, the cash levels in funds are going up. So dry powder, as we put it, is building up. And people are waiting, because still valuations are, on an aggregate basis is not very attractive. But, people are waiting. I think, it will all come back sooner than later. SBI Life has done very, very well. Now we're replacing that with iPro Life in our top 10. But as a rating and as a recommendation in the Nifty portfolio, it is still there and overweight.
If you actually look at the bridge from FY19 to FY20, 3 stocks account for 2/3 of the growth, right? That's Tata Motors, ICICI Bank, and SBI. And I think there will be downgrades. And if you look at the valuations for Nifty, it's still high, it's still 1 standard deviation above mean. That's how we would look at it. So the valuations don't account for or don't price in meaningful cuts going ahead. So that's why we have a kind of a bearish stance in our alpha portfolio. We have a big overweight on cash. We have about 4% cash in our portfolio.
Announcements don't create economies and market. At the end, they can create a short-term uplift to the sentiment, but that's all about it. We have seen the reality of that. The action plan, by the time it plays out, will take time. Things don't reverse like this, that today we announce a GST cut and tomorrow people are going to line up to buy cars. It doesn't happen in real life. And the reversal is going to happen once the market production orders start picking up. When people start coming to the market and spending, it's not going to happen because somebody just cut the GST rate. That's not going to work in this market. It's gone way beyond GST rates and so on. So I would still say, just wait. I'm not very clear as to where the government will go with this whole thing, and will this tax issues stop? FPIs will get reversed. Will the tax, everybody's talking about the tax issue. The GST refunds are not coming through. Will that get sorted out? We don't know all these answers.
नहीं आ सकता यार।